Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Christmas Eve. I know you're probably gonna see this, I don't know. I think I do like one video a week, so it'll probably be like 2 weeks after Christmas, so then into the new year. I hope you guys had a great holiday. Got some parts from Speedway. I had drilled and tapped and cut that panhard bar, but when I tapped the right-handed thread, I must have went in crooked, so it was wobbly and loose. But Speedway sells these beautiful aluminum tie rod ends, or whatever you want to call them, panhard. So we're going to use it for panhard. The other one was 18 and 7/8. This one is 19 inches, so a little bit longer, but it's a very nice piece. So I can adjust, obviously, the rear end left to right on it. So it did move. I had a little piece of angle iron welded here and there, tacked in to hold the rear end where it was. I just took that off. So I'm going to have to just get another tape on there again, run the levels down, square up the rear end again, and then hit them jam nuts so they're kind of where it's going to be so it's not moving around crazy. But yeah, the rear ends, I know in the last video I did post me jumping on it, but it does function. It's a little bouncy. Let's get that off. It is a little bit bouncy. This is all going to fall. I might as well knock it all down. But there is also no weight on it right now. It's still wild to me, though, that I just built this in my garage as just a regular-ass guy. So like I said, it is Christmas Eve. I need to get a nap in before I head back to work for midnight tonight. I just wanted to get that in place. I got some hardware for it, some lock nuts and some bolts. Next is going to be channeling that body onto this frame. Now, a couple of things. I was thinking about actually putting the heads, cleaning the heads back up and getting them back on the motor and getting the motor completely buttoned up, pretty much ready to go, and ordering a clutch kit and have this thing pretty much clutch everything ready to bolt on, or actually clutch everything bolted on to the 350 with the intake on, and a broken distributor without a cap or with a broken cap on, just to get the general area of where that body's going to sit, because I know I'm going to have to do some firewall trimming. But at the same time, when Mike gave me this 350, he gave me the crappy heads that came with it, and I do have an intake manifold there that I could just mock up temporarily. That's another thing I was thinking of, so I don't have to take this out right now, just to do like a mock-up. Like, I don't want to put this all together, put that on, take it off, and then have to take that out for something. I might as well just get the 350 put together permanently on the engine stand over there. Get those heads on there, right? Get it cleaned up, minus the intake, because if we do it mock-up here, put these heads on, put the broken distributor with a bad cap in there, just so it is where it's going to sit. Get all my clutch and throw-out bearings and stuff like that, and then get the body where it needs to go. Right now it's Christmas Eve, so the steel shop, where I would go buy sheet metal, Sullivan Steel in Holyoke, is closed. So I'll wait till next week to go get it. I'm going to get some 1-inch box tubing, which will help me build the floors. And I do want to get some maybe 1x2 box tubing. Essentially, whatever this is, I got to measure it. It looks, these angle irons at the bottom of the frame is, about 3 inches, 2.5, 3, so maybe a 1x2. But essentially, where the rear end comes up, I want to build a box around it so the rear end can travel up and down. At the same time, though, I'm seeing a lot of people that build these, they literally just cut the tub out, the wheel well out, and then throw in tubs, like, you know, if you were tubbing a car. So I might actually just cut that out right there and then put that back in afterwards and build that up and around the rear end. And I've noticed a lot, too, is when I see these cars, when people put these on T-bucket frames or Model T frames, which this is, the back end, because I don't have a Z-frame to get the ass end slammed, and the same thing with the front. I'm not Z-framed where the body's real low and the frame comes up. It's essentially a T-bucket frame. So it does have a slight rake to it, and when I put the level on it, it's roughly like probably a 2-inch rake up, maybe a little bit more, maybe 2.5, maybe 3 at most. So that means if I want to get the body level, which means I need to make my floor at an angle to match that, so the body actually sits back on the channel, or the raked frame. But then you have those guys that rake the bodies forward on them to make it look like the frame broke in half. I don't particularly like that look, but we're going to see. I think what we're going to do is I'm going to figure out, I know the frame, this body here is 7.5 feet long because it fit on an 8-foot trailer and I had 6 inches. So I'm going to measure the 7.5 feet, which when I did measure last time, it's literally right where the bell housing is. So go from there to the back and figure out what the incline is to the frame. That way, when I start at the front here, I can figure out where that pillar is, what the rake is going to be. Because essentially, I want to get right there, and around this pillar here, some box tubing, and that's going to be where this primarily mounts and sits on the frame. The back, I'm going to leave kind of open for now. Just support it and then adjust it accordingly. But I want to get it to where this part, cross members are temporarily built, at least the back ones, and that pillar and this back pillar, because I know this one's going to be temporary because it's probably going to hit the transmission. And I know this isn't perfectly flat. I'll show you here. So it's gonna have to. I'm gonna have to build some sort of tunnel, which isn't too much because that's a lot. It's a lot flatter than a turbo 350 or 400, which has the bigger bump to it. That's my brainstorm idea for today. Let's get some steel once the store opens. The shop opens, I should say. Today is the Monday after Christmas. It's 11:30 at night. Finally got a little time to myself here. This place is a mess. So we're gonna clean up a little bit. Sullivan Steel opens in the morning. We're gonna get some box tubing to channel this thing tomorrow. The box tubing, at least. I'm not gonna start the channeling. You never know, we might, depending on how much I have for energy. And then when I was at the store today, I grabbed a small block Chevy gasket kit. So essentially head gaskets and everything to put those cylinder heads back on that engine. Some Scotch-Brite and brake cleaner. Clean all the carbon off, clean the valves off, scratch them up, not really scratch them up, but clean them up good. Turn the heads upside down, put gasoline on the chambers if they don't leak through the valves. We're bolting them things on and we're sending them. I'm even gonna reuse the freaking head bolts because we're building a rat rod and we're doing it on a budget. As you can see, I cleaned the garage up and I put a mock-up cylinder head as well as intake with an old junky distributor on here to kind of see where this is going to sit when we channel the body over it. And a ton of measuring. So roughly, from the back of the frame there, all the way to here, like I said earlier, the front of the cowl roughly sits where the block meets the transmission. So from there to this part, with the level, it's roughly a 1-inch pitch. So, with my calculations and my whatever, by the time I get to the end of the frame, because this does go up notch, and then this portion here is actually higher than that. So from that mounting point on the top of the frame, it's probably like 1 3/8 slope upward for the body. So when I mount this body on here, it's going to slightly look like that, unless I drop the rear end a little bit and adjust it, which I actually might get different shocks. These are Harley shocks from a Sportster. They're non-adjustable. I found some Amazon specials for like 80 bucks that are 10.5 inch from center to center. These are 13 inch from center to center. So if I slam this down, it's going to change my pinion angle a little bit. Or if maybe I drop it 1 inch or something, I don't know. Figure that out, but I might actually grab those and lower this frame down to where it's even. And then if I have to shim that to make the pinion angle, obviously, or these radius rods, they are adjustable, so everything's adjustable. And then I also noticed when I was doing some measuring on the body, I messed up when I put this all the way to the end here and welded it flat. So this is going to get cut off and ground off there. We're actually going to take essentially this angle iron and probably run it somewhere around here and come straight up and then weld it in and cut all this back half off, because if I did my calculations right, as the the body kind of rolls down where the trunk goes. It's going to hit here when I channel it. So we'll get rid of that, re-weld it. Not that big of a deal. Just cut some welds and do a little bit of grinding. I'm good with that. We're going to call it a night for tonight. I got this place cleaned up. A little mock-up going on here. Hit the steel store, the steel shop tomorrow, and get some metal to start channeling the floor on this thing. Get the body on here to see and make it look like a hot rod. See you in the morning. So we're leaving Sullivan Metals. We got 24 feet of 1.5 inch box tubing, 1/8 inch thick for the side rails. And then I bought 1 inch square box tubing, 1/8 inch thick for the cross rails on the frame. I think it gives me a little 1/2 inch gap to make the difference. It'll all make sense when I show you. So heading back to the shop, get this unloaded. But first things first, right, Ralph? Coffee time. We're in the garage. We got the body wheeled over here. I bought some 1.5 inch box tubing and 1 inch box tubing. This is gonna be the inside of the rails to the body, and then that will be the crossbars. So you're probably thinking, why did I get the 1/2 inch, 1.5 inch, instead of the 1 inch for all of it? I'll show you. This is the original sill here for the Model T, right? So this is roughly like 2 3/4 or so tall. So if I was to just put the box tubing on top, it would roughly be about as thick as the frame. So it would just slide over the frame a little bit. I want it to go a little bit lower than the frame because I want the body to appear lower, hence channeling. So when you open your door, you see this. This is original aluminum Ford sill plates. Those are gonna come off. I'm gonna keep those. Maybe I'll reuse them for something. Or maybe I'll reuse them, and I don't know yet, but we're gonna take these off. Essentially, I wanna raise the floor up. So these are some old plates. These are Mass 27s. These are what I'm gonna reinstate to put on this car. I want to put old license plates. I saw this on another car and I really like the idea, and I like reusing old things. So I'll get some from the swap meets or the scrap yards or whatever I can find. So I plan on putting license plates, old ones, as the door sill when you come in, so you'll see underneath. You won't see through, I should say, right? Because essentially the frame is going to be here, and this is going to be underneath the frame. So if you take the top of this sill plate, which is flush, that sill plate runs all the way to where the old floors were. So it's a kind of a starting spot for me, as you would say. If I put this here, I don't know if you can see this, and I measure from the back, from the bottom to the top, we got 6.5 inches. But going from the sill plate, we're at roughly 5 inches. So what I was gonna do is use a 2x4 for space, which is 3.5 inches. And then to make up to the 5 inches to the top, I got the 1.5 inch box tubing. We'll put this right essentially at the top where the floor is. And I can screw this into the box tubing. And then I'll have the 1 inch tubing, essentially, that runs here as cross members. So it just gets me that just a little bit lower, that 1/2 inch lower than what, I was originally gonna do. So it's just what I thought of. And I don't really think I'm gonna chop this car, because everyone that I look at chops it. I say that, I'll probably chop it, right? I'll get bored with it, but for right now, we're gonna leave the car a tall T. Most of the ones that I see, like I've said in my other videos, everybody chops these. And if I'm raising the floor about 5 inches, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna have a ton of headroom. So if I do a chop, it won't be a drastic chop. It'll probably be, 2 or 3 inches out of the top. It all depends on how high my floor is and where my head sits in here. Last night, I kind of put a bucket in there and figured out where it was gonna sit, and I had probably like this much room over my head still. So if I do put a roof on and stuff, at least my head won't be flying out, because I plan on putting roll cage and belts in here, so it's a little bit safer than, Miss Beauty going down the road. That's my plan. My plan is to put some blocking here, and there, and there, and there, and weld some steel and some brackets to all this. I have to get a nice bend in here. I have to learn how to... I see videos on guys how they do this. They make pie cuts and they bend the steel. I've never done it, so we're going to learn as we build this. Try to get this to where this is welded in place and at least the same level across. make some temporary cross braces. We're not going to cut out and make the transmission tunnel right now because I'm not sure exactly where it's going to land. I think the tail shaft is probably going to land somewhere around here, and I think the bell is going to be more here. But like I said in my other video, the bell housing is really the only big part. This 4-speed's pretty flat compared to like Turbo 300 or Turbo 350 or Turbo 400. So usually that transmission case comes bigger like that. So hoping that I don't have a ton of crazy custom work, which I know I'm going to have to do some. But we'll get to that road. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. I'm going to get my skill saw out. I'm going to cut up some blocks for some 2x4. And then we're going to start taking some measurements, and maybe we can get the side pieces lined up. But I'm going to get these original sill plates off, get that license plate back, stored away nice and neat, because that'll be going on the car. And we're going to start channeling this body. I'm going to channel this thing right here. I'm going to get the doors to close, and I'm going to channel it right here. And that's probably wrong. Some people say they put the body over the car and do it, but I'm going to send it. I'm going to just raise the floor up the 5 inches. Really, I guess it's 4 inches. 5 inches to the top, but I'll lower it 4 inches. So I'll roughly drop this thing 6 3/4 down over the frame, which will actually be pretty sick. So if the top of this is going to be 7 3/4 minus that 1 inch, you're looking at roughly 3.5 inches. The body will be lower there, which I think, all the way across 3.5 inches or so. It's going to hide almost all the radius rods in the back. Because what are these down? Yeah, it's going to hide most of that. So I think that'll be a decent channel. Also, when I drove one of these things before, it was the stock body, and it was on a regular T-bucket frame. Essentially like mine, without the drop beam up front like mine, the 4-inch behind. It was a 4-inch on top, so the front end sat a little bit higher, as well as the back end was jacked up. So the car was really raked, like classic hot rods. The guy's older than I drove his car, and I sat up so like high in it that the way the car was jacked forward, you're driving it forward, and you have to look underneath this on the Model T, this part here. So every time when I was driving it, I had to duck my head down. So I'm hoping that by dropping it down, kind of keeping it flat and level inside here, and kind of bringing my seat flat and floor flat, that I'll be able to look straight out in this area here. Hopefully, but who knows. Making very slow progress. Like I said, I am not a fabricator. This is all new to me. I'm watching pie cut videos on how to do things. Bad Chad Customs, thank you so much if you're watching this video. I've learned so much by watching your stuff. I gotta get this little door tab opener, holder, whatever you want, the door opener, whatever holds the thing from slamming open. Gotta get that out of the way, but I think that will weld pretty solid to this beam here, and obviously that moves. And I think I have roughly, on the window here, I think I have pretty much the right angle for that. So we'll continue with the frame here. I'll get it tacked in there. I get it tacked here. I'm going to get it tacked in the front. I'm going to build one for the side. It's the same. I'm going to get 2 temporary cross members, and then I'm going to actually cut this whole floor pan out. That way it's cross braced. And I decided I'm going to leave all this original framing in here just to hold the whole bottom of the body kind of in place for now. I do have to cut all this out. I'm 50-50 on what I'm going to do with this. I might actually cut this whole wheel well out and then piece it back in afterwards. Or I might just big hole saw and cut. I don't know yet. We'll figure that out when we get to that aspect of it. But I want to try to get these rails tacked in and some cross bracing made. That way the body, in theory, could sit on the frame and figure out. As long as I have those parts, maybe I'll run like a temporary brace, weld something in the back here to hold the back from moving. Although this thing is pretty solid. Like it's not, even when we moved it and tweaked it, it doesn't move. Like it's still pretty structurally, I wouldn't say square, but it's there. And let's face it, this thing's a rat rod. As long as those doors close and I build this frame, if it's crooked, I really don't care. Like that's the whole aspect of this car. As long as it kind of goes down the road somewhat looking straight and looking cool, that's literally all I care about. Just took a little break with the wife. She just got home. Drop him a nice roast beef sandwich, so I had to eat that real quick. So, I have this part kind of mocked up where it's gonna go, clamped in place, and we're gonna attempt to weld really old metal. Hi, Dad. I welded these solid, and then I messed up and I threw another pie cut in there, so I'll have to get down and weld that. I should be able to reach it from the bottom. I'm gonna get this kind of tack welded in place here on these corners and figure out how to tack that to there. I figured I'd left that the way this is because when I cut that out, I'm gonna have to like box in where the rear end goes, just box up and over. So I figure I can always cut this back or forward depending on what I do when the time comes. I'm thinking once also I do this, get that welded in, I think I actually might cut 3.5 inch angle iron and kind of just run them up to here and weld the insides as much as I can get. If I can get the back, I'll do it, but maybe put a couple gussets, make something work just so it has a little bit more structural support to it, not add a ton of weight, but just give it a little bit more strength to it. And then I'm gonna have to make some brackets for up front as well. But we're getting there slowly. I am definitely not a welder, but for 100-year-old steel, it actually welds like really good. I know I cleaned it up pretty good, but I'm wondering if just because of how pure the metal is that it's not like all old crap stuff, you know? Wow. So this is kind of tacked in place for now. It's 6:15. I'm gonna call it quits tonight, and then I'll get that other side hopefully tomorrow morning when I get out of work. Get that side kind of mocked up to where I am now, and then I'll run a few crossbars and run a couple crossbars in the back, and then I'll probably run some sort of cross mount here, probably on the inside the window or something, just to hold the car kind of square, get the doors closed, and then I'm gonna cut the actual floor out that I'm on here. Cut all this out, which this is almost 100 years old and it's still holding me no problem. See you in the morning. It is New Year's Day. I hope everybody had a great holiday. We're back out in the shop now. We're gonna keep working on channeling this. The last video I left off, I only got the driver's side done, so I'm gonna start on the passenger side rail, then maybe make some box tubing, and then get this floor pan cut out. But check this out. Messing around with this rear, jumping on it, I noticed that shock made that sound, and this one just was like bouncy. So I think that shock that was on this side was blown out. So I hit up another friend who had some shocks from another Harley, which is the Dyna Harley. They are a little shorter. I had to adjust those up, but they fit, and it's at the same ride height it was. I just had to raise that up like an inch and a half, so 2 notches. I think I have enough room on this panhard bar. I'm 50-50. I mean, it's kind of close, but I mean, I can put my hand under it and it still moves, but like an inch or so. But me jumping as hard as I can on the back of that car, this thing doesn't hit. And I mean, granted, it's gonna have to travel a lot to go over that, but we're gonna leave it tacked in like that for now. And if I have to come up with another way to do it, I might. I'm pretty sure that this is cast iron, so I know I've seen people weld to these. Maybe I'll shorten this, get a really small one, and 90, keep it at 90 here and weld it here, so it travels up and down with the rear end. Not sure yet, but we're gonna leave that like that. Definitely after measuring that and looking at it, I think I'm definitely gonna have to cut these. So I'll probably end up zinging these off somewhere around here, pulling this off, and then doing the same essential thing there and just boxing it to the frame. That way I have my shock mounts, and then I'll have a back part, because I think it's gonna hit the curve somewhere, so the body might not fit right, which is not a big deal, but we'll do that. I'm gonna continue on getting this channel here. Got the heat going, and it's a little chilly out today here, chilly and windy, so let's get back to work. After a little cutting, a little winding, we got this part welded in place here. Essentially, like I said on that side, I just put 2x4s at the 3.5 inch mark. The 1.5 inch brings me that 5 inch to the top of the floor. Next, over here, I got some 1 inch pipe. And I'm gonna start cutting this cross braces here. Essentially, probably go, I might do one temporary one there. I know the transmission's gonna be somewhere around here. But definitely in spots that I know there's gonna be no transmission. So definitely like after the tail shaft, I know I'm gonna have to build a tunnel. Do that all while it's connected, essentially. So probably run my cross braces, and then I'm probably gonna build a square tunnel just because that is slightly offset. So I'll have to figure something out, but run my box tubing straight across and then build a square over it, weld them, and then cut them as I go. That way it doesn't move. But it should be cool, and hopefully, maybe, if I can get like 3 temporary cross braces in, and then I'm gonna have to notch that as well, 1 inch or so, a couple inches I should say, so it matches that. And I should be able to drop maybe the body on the frame tonight, I'm not sure. But I think we're just going to get the channel built and the floor temporarily set up. And that's probably gonna be this episode. Next episode, probably be me fitting the body onto the chassis. So let's keep picking at it. Grace is coming home, she's out shopping right now, right? Women out shopping, come on. She went out real quick, she's coming back, she wants to help, so maybe we'll put her to work cutting up some box tubing. Keep picking along. My helper's home. And my thought is, since I have these pillars here, there and there, it's a starting point for me to reference. So what I'm gonna do is just put this level on, and we're gonna weld a crossbar essentially there to have as a measuring point to go forward and backwards to kind of square up as I weld in the cross members. So my esteemed colleague over here, Mrs. Grace, she's gonna cut this for me as I'm preparing this because she wants to help, which we're gonna have her do it. We'll put a time lapse on and you'll see her cut and grinding some stuff. Sit here, that's going to be away from the transmission. The tunnel's going to be roughly here. So we're going to measure from the firewall. Now you're recording me. From the firewall, which is roughly where the transmission bolts to the back of the block. And then we're going to come forward and tack in a temporary cross brace here. Actually, we don't even need it. Because the front of the body is going to hold this down when we channel it. We're going to put a temporary one. It might be halfway here. Let's do little tap loads. And then we got to measure where the back of the frame is going to sit on the back hump. That's where this one will go. And we'll square it off of here. I mean, you got the door jambs here. Essentially, is we will square the frame. So, yeah.
Look at me.
Oh, look who finally made it outside. Hey, Mr. Hyper. In there raising hell. Mr. Ralph. Hi. We have temporary, I guess they're probably going to be permanent, but probably temporary. So I'm going to definitely have to cut a transmission tunnel that's not welded. But with that being said, the front part of the cowl here is actually skinnier than what the frame is, right? So I'm going to have to cut up here and notch that out essentially to where the floor is, so like right here. That way the body sits down on the frame. So essentially, that's why I didn't weld anything in the front. This will actually hold the weight of the body in the front part. And then I have those two, which I think should really hold this on the frame. I don't have anything in the back, but if I have to, I'll run a jack in the back just to temporarily hold the weight until I build the frame part. Because essentially, I'll have to cut these out to run to get it over the axle. So I got a lot more cutting and grinding to do. Next is going to be, I'm going to cut that actual floor out, the original floor. And hopefully, we'll get this body mounted on this frame here. And then we'll see what our hot rod looks like. What do you think, Ralph? What do you think, Grace?
We dig it.
We dig it. So, with that being said, we're going to end this video off here. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share the channel. If you've made it this far in the build and or my video, please leave me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment, some sort of feedback. Positive, negative. I don't care. I've had a few people tell me, do this, do that. I've had people reach out to me on my Instagram, Fixed with Coop, to let me know, hey, you should do this, you should try that, this and that. So, again, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.